The night was quiet in a way that felt heavy, as if the world itself was holding its breath. Outside a small hospital room on the edge of a forgotten town, the wind whispered through leafless trees, carrying secrets only the lonely could hear. Inside that room lay a boy no older than 10, his body thin, his breath shallow, but his eyes still alive with a spark that refused to die. His name was Ethan, and though his body was losing a battle it could never win, his heart still raced every time he heard the distant sound of a motorcycle engine. Before we begin, Kindness Souls, please like and share my videos and subscribe the channel Kindness Soul Stories, because stories like this deserve to be remembered, and kindness grows only when it is shared. Ethan had loved motorcycles for as long as he could remember. Even before he could walk properly, his small fingers would grip toy bikes, pushing them across the floor with engine sounds he made himself. His father used to say that Ethan was born with gasoline in his veins and chrome in his dreams. On better days, when the pain allowed it, Ethan would sit by the window and watch the road beyond the hospital fence, hoping, always hoping, that a motorcycle would pass by. And when it did, even just one, his face would light up as if someone had turned the sun back on. The doctors had already told the family the truth. There would be no miracle cure, no experimental drug, no last-minute breakthrough. The cancer was aggressive, merciless, and final. All they could offer now was comfort, time, and dignity. Ethan's mother, Sarah, held his hand every night, whispering stories into his ear so he wouldn't feel afraid. His father, Mark, tried to be strong, but every time he stepped into the hallway, he broke down where no one could see him. One evening, as rain tapped softly against the window, Ethan asked a question that cut deeper than any diagnosis. "Dad," he said, his voice barely more than a breath, "do you think I'll ever get to ride a real motorcycle?" Mark froze, his throat tightened, he wanted to lie, he wanted to promise the impossible. Instead, he squeezed his son's hand and said, "Maybe not ride one, buddy, but maybe you can hear them, maybe you can see them." Ethan smiled weakly. That would be enough. That night, Sarah wrote a short message on social media. She didn't expect much. She didn't beg. She simply told the truth. She wrote about a little boy who loved motorcycles, about a boy who was running out of time, about a final wish, not for toys, not for money, but for the sound of engines, the sight of bikes, and the feeling of being part of something big. She ended the post with a simple line, "If you ride, and if you can, please come." She went to sleep believing maybe a handful of local riders might show up, 5, 10, 20 if they were lucky. By morning, the post had traveled farther than anyone imagined. It was shared in biker groups, motorcycle clubs, private chats, and forums across states, across borders, across countries. Men and women who had never met Ethan, who didn't know his face or his name, felt something stir inside them. Some of them had lost children. Some had been that sick child once. Some simply understood the unspoken bond between a rider and the road. Messages poured in. "I'll be there. Riding 300 miles. Coming with my club. Bringing my brothers." By noon, the local police station was calling the hospital, asking questions that sounded unreal. "How many riders are you expecting?" Sarah whispered, I don't know." The day arrived wrapped in a pale morning sky. Ethan was weaker now, but his eyes were wide with anticipation. Nurses gently rolled his bed closer to the window. Outside, the road lay empty, silent, ordinary. For a moment, doubt crept in. What if no one came? What if it was too much to ask? Then, far away, like a distant storm, a low rumble began. At first, it was faint, almost imagined. Ethan tilted his head. "Mom," she listened. Her heart skipped. "I hear it too." The sound grew louder, deeper, stronger. The ground itself seemed to tremble. One motorcycle appeared at the end of the road, then another, then 10, then 50, then more than the eye could count. They came in waves, Harleys, sport bikes, cruisers, old rusted machines held together by love and memory, brand, new chrome beasts shining like mirrors, riders in leather, denim, helmets, bandanas. Some carried flags, Some carried teddy bears tied to their handlebars. Some rode in silence. Others revved their engines gently, respectfully, as if bowing to something sacred. Ethan's mouth fell open. Tears streamed down his cheeks, but he didn't try to wipe them away. He laughed, a pure, unbroken laugh that filled the room with life. They came, he whispered, they really came. They didn't stop at 20, they didn't stop at 100, they didn't stop at 1,000. They kept coming. The road filled, then overflowed. Side streets packed with bikes. Parking lots turned into seas of steel and rubber. Helicopters circled overhead. Police scrambled to manage traffic, stunned by what they were witnessing. The final count would later shock the world. 20,000 bikers, 20,000 strangers, 20,000 hearts riding for one child. They shut off their engines all at once. Silence fell. Then slowly, one rider started his bike again. Then another, then hundreds, then thousands. The sound rose like thunder, but it wasn't violent. It was powerful, protective, loving. Inside the room, Ethan closed his eyes. "This is the best day," he said softly. Riders removed their helmets. Many were crying openly. Big men with tattoos and scars stood wiping their faces like children. They lined up outside the hospital, holding signs they had made overnight. "For Ethan, you ride with us, little brother forever." One biker, an old man with a silver beard, knelt by the window and pressed his hand to the glass. "We got you, kid," he said. "You're one of us now." Nurses wept. Doctors stood silent. Even the hardened police officers felt their throats tighten. Ethan's breathing slowed. His mother sensed it before anyone else. She held him close, her tears falling onto his hair. "Do you hear them?" she asked. Ethan smiled. "I hear them, all of them." Outside, as if guided by something greater than themselves, the riders began to rev their engines one final time. Not loud, not wild, but steady and strong, like a heartbeat. Ethan exhaled, and he didn't inhale again. The sound carried him away. When the news broke, the world listened, not because of tragedy, but because of unity, not because of death, but because of love. News anchors struggled to speak. Headlines spread across continents. People who had never cared about motorcycles suddenly cared deeply about what those riders represented. Ethan was buried wearing a tiny leather vest, custom made, with a patch sewn onto the back. It read, "Rode with the Angels." On the day of the funeral, the bikers came again, thousands of them. They rode slowly, respectfully, escorting the family like guardians. The sound of engines was softer this time, filled with grief and honor. Mark stood beside his wife and whispered, "He rode more motorcycles in one day than most people see in a lifetime." And Sarah replied through tears, "He was never alone." Years have passed since that day, but the story never faded. Riders still tell it around campfires. Parents tell it to their children. And somewhere on a quiet road, when engines hum together in perfect rhythm, some say you can still feel a small presence riding along, smiling, fearless, finally free. And remember this: sometimes the greatest miracle is not a cure, but the way strangers come together so a child doesn't have to face the end alone. The world did not quiet down after Ethan left it. In fact, in some strange and beautiful way, it grew louder. Not with chaos, but with purpose. The day after the funeral, riders who had never spoken before began calling one another brothers and sisters. Clubs that once rode separately now shared the same roads. Jackets were stitched with new patches, not of skulls or flames, but of a small winged helmet with a single name beneath it, Ethan. Before we continue, Kindness Souls, please like and share my videos and subscribe the channel Kindness Soul Stories, because this story did not end with a goodbye. It became a beginning. Sarah woke up each morning expecting the silence to crush her. She thought the absence of her son's breathing, his laughter, his quiet questions at night would break her completely. Some days it almost did, but every time her phone buzzed, there was a message from somewhere in the world. A rider from Texas sent a photo of his bike parked under a sunset, Ethan's name painted on the tank. A woman from Germany mailed a small leather bracelet with a note that read, "He rides with me every mile." A group from Japan sent a video, engines revving together, bowing in silence. Mark kept the window open at night. He said it helped him sleep. When Sarah asked why, he answered quietly, "Sometimes, I swear I can hear them." The hospital placed a small plaque near the road where the bikes had gathered. Nurses who had been there that day said they could never look at motorcycles the same way again. One nurse, who had lost her own child years earlier, finally found the courage to ride again after decades of fear. "If they can carry a child home," she said, "they can carry me forward." Something else happened too, something no one expected. Requests began arriving. Parents of sick children started writing to biker groups, hesitant, almost apologetic. They didn't ask for 20,000. They didn't ask for miracles. They asked for noise, for presence, for proof that their child mattered beyond hospital walls, and the writers answered, one town at a time. One child at a time. They rode for a little girl who loved pink helmets. They rode for a teenage boy who could no longer speak but smiled when engines roared. They rode for children who survived, and for those who didn't. They called it Ethan's Ride. No leader claimed it. No club owned it. It belonged to the road. One evening, nearly a year later, Sarah stood beside a quiet highway holding a candle. She had been invited to speak at a small gathering of riders. Her hands shook, but her voice was steady. "My son didn't want to be remembered for being sick," she said. "He wanted to be remembered for what he loved." 1,000 headlights flickered on at once. Mark stood behind her, his hand on her shoulder. He wore a jacket now, not leather, but denim, with a single patch stitched inside where only he could see it. It read, "Thank you for riding." Far away, in places Ethan had never seen on a map, children heard motorcycles pass and smiled without knowing why. And riders, hardened by miles and scars, softened in ways they didn't expect. Some quit fights they'd been carrying for years. Some went home more often. Some called their children just to say, "I love you," because one boy had taught them something simple. That time is precious, that sound can be comfort, that love does not need permission. And if you listen closely, kindness souls, on long empty roads just before dawn, when engines hum low and steady, you might feel it too. A small presence riding between them, fearless and free, reminding the world that kindness, once unleashed, never truly stops moving. If this story continues to move your heart, please like and share my videos and subscribe the channel Kindness Soul Stories, because as long as stories like Ethan's are told, no child rides alone.